Hey everybody, and welcome back to our 5-minute Bible study through each chapter of the Bible. We're on episode 13 today, Genesis chapter 13. And as always, all the information that I'm going to be reading and the information that you can see up on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube can be downloaded for free on our website at tobelikechrist.com. We've got this in podcast form, video form, and written form, and maybe even some other forms coming down the pipeline. So let's talk about Genesis chapter 13. When did the events of this chapter take place? Well, Abraham, who is kind of the main character here, known as Abram, he was born in approximately 1996 BC. And he died in 1821 BC at the age of 175. Now, the events recorded specifically in Genesis 13 took place sometime between the years when Abram was 75 and 100. So in terms of our characters, we've already mentioned one, and that's Abram, who will later be known as Abraham. He's a man from Ur of the Chaldees who moved to Canaan when God instructed him to do so and made him a promise that he would give his family, his descendants, the Canaan land as their own. We then have Sarai, who is Abraham's wife, and then Lot, who is Abraham's nephew. Where did the events of chapter 13 occur? Well, at the opening of the chapter, Abram moves out of Egypt, where he had been in chapter 12, and he moves to the area east of Bethel, where he had built an altar previously. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled in the Jordan River Valley, and that will become very important in the upcoming chapters. At the end of chapter 13, Abram moved to a place called the Oaks of Mamre, which was in Hebron. So now let's break the chapter down in our outline. This is kind of a short chapter. It's only got 18 verses, so it'll go somewhat quickly. The first section, verses 1 through 13, the bulk of the chapter, talks about Abraham and Lot separating after they returned to the Canaan land. After lying to Pharaoh about the identity of Sarai, do you remember that from the last chapter? Abram, Lot, and Sarai left Egypt, and they traveled through the Negev, or southern Canaan, back to Bethel. Abraham is described as being very rich, and he had an abundance of livestock. And his nephew Lot also had sizable herds. Now, between the two of them, they had so many animals that there wasn't enough pasture land for them to live together and to support them all. And so Abram and Lot agreed that they were going to separate. And Abram gave Lot his choice of where he wanted to go, which was very generous. Lot made a decision to go east and to live in the fertile Jordan River Valley near the city of Sodom. Now, from a business standpoint, that was probably a good decision. From a moral standpoint, not so much, because the men of Sodom are described as, quote, wicked, great sinners before the Lord. So Lot went to the Jordan River Valley. Abram settled in Canaan in the west. And then in the last couple of verses, we have our second section, verses 14 through 18. God reaffirms his promises to Abraham. So God told Abram that he would give his offspring all of the land that he could see, to the north, the south, the east, and the west. And he promised to make Abram's descendants multiply, and they would be as numerous as the dust of the earth. And Abram then moved to the place known as Hebron, which you can see on the map, and he built an altar there to worship the Lord. And so that is the short chapter of Genesis 13. Now let's talk about an application. Do not put your soul in danger for the sake of prosperity. We mentioned this just a second ago. Lot chose to live in a wicked town in Sodom because the Jordan River Valley was a good place, an ideal place for somebody who was in the livestock business, which he was. Sodom was a good business choice, but it was not a spiritually healthy place. But apparently, for Lot, that was not enough to dissuade him from living there. Now, I won't ruin the story, but in the upcoming chapters, we're going to find out that Lot pays dearly for this decision. We should never allow the allure of prosperity to lead us places where our souls or the souls of our family members are going to be endangered. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals." So if we make our decisions based on prosperity and don't consider the company that we keep and that we surround ourselves with, we'll grow to regret those decisions in the long run when we discover that we ourselves or our family members are farther from God than we ever intended them to be.